Nicorette here, and today I am finally getting around to doing what I promised to do a week or so ago, a review of the anime movie In This Corner of the World. So it follows the story of, I'm sorry if I butcher this name, Suzu Utano, and her sort of collaboration of her passion of drawing and her life when she gets married to this man and moves to Hiroshima. Obviously it's based in World War II, so it's in wartime in 1945, so a year before the war ended. A year before the war ended. So, in my opinion, from finishing the movie, it's a very intriguing aspect of portraying the war and showing a family struggle. But it's very confusing in points, and that's I'll explain more in a moment, but it was very difficult to follow at certain points, whether that was on purpose or just because that's how certain audience do understand it and some don't. I don't know. So she, at the beginning of the movie, obviously she lives with her own family, so her mum, her dad and a sister, I believe, or it was a family friend, something like that. And they're not like a well-off family, but they're not poor either. And from a young age, she seems to have shown a very good talent in drawing. And it seems normally of her life and also of children's stories. And she gets, obviously because the family is poorer, or, well, I wouldn't say poor, her family is not as well off as the one she marries into, from what is shown by the style of house and the conversation between her dad and the guy's dad. So she's like off doing something, and she gets told, well, news of, there's people there at your house who need to talk to you. It's a suitor, basically. And she's like, I don't care, basically. But she is a very what would be the word? She's very well, she keeps to herself a lot. She's very individual to just drawing and going about her life. She doesn't bother with too many from the characterization she's given. And she's not very knowledgeable of things outside of her town, like other types of food, what's actually the elements of the war, so things like what is used in the war, the different types of air raid strategies, and stuff like that. So she does eventually, from the conversation of like it cuts to the mother and father of Zuzu and the man and his father. It seems like it's a sort of trade deal or a business deal where her family will get support and money for, I think, the business they use or they run, if Zuzu goes and marries this man's son, which I think it's probably about half a year after that visit she does. She gets married, and it's a very formal marriage in their eyes, and she acts informal. She does things that they see as inappropriate, but that's what she sees as just normal in ways, because she's not been brought up in that formal setting. So she's about 20 at that time, and obviously in Hiroshima, that was one of the main places that were being attacked by UK, US, because around that time the US would have gotten involved finally, and their allies were obviously attacking the Axis countries, just like the Axis countries were attacking the Allied countries. And they take it really slow in this the movie storyline of, they show the build up in the family life, this new family life for Zuzu, and how how she tries to adjust but does things wrong, wants to just draw, but she does try to get an understanding of her new life and what is going on, and what the wartime procedures are, and what she should do to act better, because from the respect shown by the neighbours in this village, the family she marries into is somewhat very well known, and they seem to expect a certain level of formality and so on from this family. So she tries her best to understand, try to stay on the good side of people and get used to it. Obviously this seems to have been an arranged marriage, so she's not going to be exactly 100% happy, not until she realises she has met this guy before. So she, as the story progresses, she finds her feet, she becomes independent, and even tries to understand why one family member of the family she's married into doesn't seem to like her, seems very against her having come into the family. And it's explained later on why, and it's quite a powerful and dramatic reason why this, I believe it was the boy's auntie or sister, and that's one thing that also confused me, which one each family member was, but what happens to her is very powerful. Now, this family relative does have a daughter who is very intelligent. From what she seems to be only about between 5 or 8 years old, but she's very intelligent. She's very understanding of what's happening around her. So she recognises that this woman's married into the family, and now she's Zuzu's family member is a family member to her, but also realizes that there's a war going on. She knows, and she was taught by her, I guess would be uncle, what actually happened. What actually happens in those times. She knew the names of the ships used, the planes, what each one sort of did, and that's simply because, one, because the brother, and two, because it was taught to these kids and teens and adults, all these different things, especially in these countries. And it does show a snippet of the women being taught what these ships did and what to watch out for, and to gain understanding, because in a way it would have been a sign of protection if they understood what these things did. And the movie delves into so much, but not as horrifying as, for example, Grave of the Fireflies. And not the point that is until the end. It builds up very nicely, yet confusing in certain parts, because they put like her aspects through her drawings and video form of how she was feeling, what she perceived the events as, and the tragic event happens, which changes the mood drastically. So before that, obviously, bombs were starting to hit more, sort of in the leading up to what most people know, the Hiroshima atomic bomb, Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. So it shows them building the air raid shelter, and they know things are getting worse, and that's when you start getting the reality bar. Obviously, they showed scenes of like the rations and strain of that, and the black market booming because of that. But the main time the sadness and the powerful feelings start to come through, and actually you start seeing fear in the characters, is when the bombs start hitting more, and then this tragedy happens to the auntie, sister, whatever, of the family, and to Suzu herself, which leaves her with PTSD quite clearly, because what happens stops her being able to draw ever again. And taking that was sort of her lifeline, if you think about it. Her drawing was her lifeline, her glue to an escape from what was actually really happening, and also sort of would have helped her get an understanding of what was happening, and she loses that. And this was like 3/4 of the way through the film. And then the more horrifying scenes, reminiscent of Grave of Fireflies, start coming through because of her. She's obviously not physically drawing it, but in her mind she's drawing it and wishing, could have happened to me instead. The worst thing happened to me instead. Why did it happen to the other person and not me? The sort of guilt of PTSD, and obviously not war influenced PTSD, but I know and understand your PTSD because I got it from another thing that happened in my life. And then the distressing scenes come in nearer the end of after the news of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombs had hit, and you see things that are just disturbing. And I went in with the expectation it's wartime, there's gonna show something relative to the actual horrors of war, but I did not expect it in the way that it showed it. And that practically scared me, and I don't get scared by it a lot in anime movies or even programs, and it scared me how powerful these imageries were. So, and in the end it sort of gets a bit bad. Obviously Japan in the war declared defeat and signed that they surrendered, and US Army people came in, and obviously they helped the civilians even though they killed a lot in the bomb dropping, sorry. But it does get a somewhat happier, brighter ending than the last lot of imagery showed just beforehand. And so a few of the confusing points in the movie, as I explained, was the transitioning between the animated storyline to her drawings in video form being shown. Sometimes it transitioned and didn't quite make sense, at least to me and a few people I've talked to. But that could just be a minority of people. Some people may have got it, some people may not. It's just dependent on how well you perceive things, I believe. Well, possibly. But yeah, that was something I found confusing. Another thing was keeping track of what family member was what. That could simply have been the way my mind works. It doesn't quite follow if it's to make characters in one scene or something like that. It could well have been that, but also from talking to others, that was something that wasn't quite made clear was who, but the very main characters. And the confusing part was the ages and the way the characters looked, because some of the imagery, and if I can get it right, obviously there's some comedic parts in it, which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. A few comedic parts, but I guess it is reminiscent of real life, because obviously there's going to be those family members that put fun, those that tease, and sometimes the over-exaggeration of someone's reaction is key to moving a movie along. But back on point, some of the, maybe I can get this in, but some of the imagery, she looks really rather young, and she's supposed to be between the movie 19 to 20. I think by the end of the movie she would be 21 or 22, depending on when her birthday was in the movies. But she is very along with quite a few others, but the older characters, it seems, are hard to pinpoint what age they are supposed to be. And she is, it's like they prefer that she's short, but her height is reminiscent of someone teenage years more than what is expected of at least even Japanese wise 19 to 20 odd years old. And I believe it's just the animation style, is that they are perceived as quite young, and I guess it could hint to the idea of innocence as well, maybe. But it did sometimes confuse me. And if you have talked to, what age were they supposed to be until, and they don't say exactly straight off the bat what age they're supposed to be. It's explained throughout the movie eventually. But watching it first off, I thought she was something like 16, 17 years old and not an adult at all. But of course that happens, and certain animation styles don't show age as well how we would perceive someone to look at a certain age. But I guess it did sometimes confuse the plot, because it was like my perception of someone being 16, why are they getting married, or so on, or doing certain things. And then when I figured out, no, she must be older, then it made sense. But at first, obviously, it's like questioning quite a bit. So obviously, like quite a few anime and anime films, it's based off a manga, and I've been trying to find the manga and find it for a reasonable price, because I want to see and compare how well they linked it to the actual main, the original manga. Because if they did portray the manga really well and really on track to what it was about, didn't change too much, I find that as a really good, makes the film really good if it sits close to the source material. So I'm hoping when I get hold of the book, and I recommend you have a look at for the manga as well, be it before watching the movie or after, just to see if there's any change and see if it gives a bit more understanding to the character and so on. Because you never know, it could, obviously in a manga you can go into more details because that's the original work. It's you, the writer, explaining the character, their biography, their appearances very well, and sort of you can perceive the way someone's speaking in your own representation. So it's worth doing, and I do recommend that with a lot of things. Like I watched, for example, My Neighbor Totoro, and then I went and got the written novel, and there are things different. It goes in more detail. So as I said, I recommend you do that. On the movie wise, I got it £10, I believe, in HMV. I believe elsewhere it's relatively low cost, so you're not going out your way paying for a movie, because who really wants to spend too much unless you know it's going to be good. And that's, I do want to say, it is a really well made and interesting movie, and it's very intriguing, animation is good quality, but for the slight point I made, the characters are full of their individual personalities. It's not glossed over, it's not bland. It is a brilliant film, but there's small confusing points, and I highly recommend you give it a watch and share your own opinions in the comments, because I enjoyed the movie thoroughly. Even the parts that confused me, I enjoyed. The drawings of this woman were so creative, so sometimes it was a bit strange, like good strange, because it shows it in a broadness of colour and movements, like random example, sort of like, you know, the waves in the sea and the white sea foam, depicting that as birds. I'm not quite sure what birds it was depicted as, but showing it in an abstract way, something occurring without actually drawing the actual thing. And it's very I keep saying very, I must find a different word, to be honest. Although, as I said, it does get a bit horrifying near the end. It is perfect for if you enjoyed Grove of Fireflies, but you want something a bit smoother, a bit less horrifying all the way through, and actually shows a bit more in depth family struggle than two kids like going through it. And then obviously Grove of Fireflies is a different sort of movie altogether, but the ending imagery of In This Corner of the World, as I said, was really moving, and I guess one bit was a bit grotesque, and that's one thing I will warn if you are letting your kids watch it. It is rated 12, so hopefully you're not letting your little kids watch it without watching before yourself, but it's a heads up, there is some explicit horrors in it. And I guess it may be a bit of a trigger for certain people as well, which is obviously if you feel any anxiety watching a movie, or you feel too upset, please don't force yourself to push through it. You can always pause the movie and take a break. That's just a bit of common sense, that there is some triggering and explicit gruesome parts in it, obviously, as war would have, and if you find something too much, always take a break. But anyway, I must say it is a good film, and it's backed by the reviews and the awards it got from just the box, like the cover, and it says it's got 5 different awards from release. So the Annecy 2017 Jury Award, 40th Japan Academy Film Prize, then Edinburgh International Film, and obviously awards off of the place it's based in, Hiroshima, actually got a International Film Festival award, which is really good, isn't it? That they get awards off of somewhere that their film is based in. So, and it's between 4 and 5 stars rating, so, and I back at least the 4-star. Maybe a bit better leading into the drawing scenes and so on may have made me think a 5-star myself personal rating, but otherwise it's a brilliant, awesome movie, very moving and very, very interesting. I will say it's not one of my new favourite movies, I will be honest about that. I would still stand by my favourite newish movies is A Silent Voice because it hits so close to home to me. But I do have relatives who fought on the Allies side that obviously have passed now, but I did have relatives who were in the army for the British during World War II. I did have a relative that was in World War I, and obviously looking over their journals and such, and just what's been passed down from my family, it was a horrible time, and to see it being relived and retold in different aspects through movies, especially animated movies where you don't have limits, but obviously the sensory things that countries have, you don't have much limit in what you can draw and put into a manga and a movie animated wise, and it's sort of an advantage. It tells us so much for just, I think it was 124 minutes approximately long, and it was very nice to watch and experience this movie. I will say, personally it did take me a bit of time to watch because it was 124 and I started watching it late, well, at night time, and then I continued the next morning because 124, like 2 hours, no, not, yeah, about 2 hours. It's a bit long to watch in one sitting, at least for me who doesn't always keep attention so well. But yeah, I think to finish off, in conclusion, really good movie, definitely a recommendation to watch, and I believe you can, American audiences, you can probably pick it up in Walmart or a few DVD stores. Maybe if you do have any anime or manga stores near you, they will probably have it in stock. Not for definite, but more than likely. So yeah, I think definitely watch this and say what you think of the movie down in the comments below. And if you have anything you would like me to review, be it anime, manga, book, movie wise, please comment below and I will get around to doing so. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as it's my birthday next weekend and the Friday we'd be preparing things, I'll be recording a video in advance and posting it on the Friday. So I hope you enjoyed this review and I hope it was helpful. See you all soon.